JoshCast, dun, 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 dun. Oh, it's episode 35 of the JoshCast, dun, 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 dun. Oh, I can't believe we're still doing this, dun, 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 dun. JoshCast, dun, 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 dun. JoshCast. All right, today we are feeling better today. Better this week than last week. That's good. Which can only mean one thing. I'm going to get worse again. Something is going to happen that will make it worse. That's usually how that works. As soon as I start to feel good, something comes along to make it feel bad. Now, is that a self-fulfilling prophecy? Probably. But yes, feeling up. I don't know. Maybe I am. I wonder if I am bipolar. Wouldn't that be a discovery? I don't think so. I don't think I. No, I think I'm pretty polar. Generally pretty depressed. This is what's going on. Oh, I just had sugar. That's probably so. I'm on a high right now. Maybe that's what it is. I had 4 cookies, causing me to poot, if you will. Good. So I'm trying to figure out how to be marketable as a comedian in an era where all I want to do is get up on stage and scream about our current political situation. So I kind of want to force myself not to talk about that right now during this, and talk about everything I am. So I'm culturally Jewish. We'll start there. That's the term for it. I mean, we didn't. I've only been to a synagogue less than a handful of times. We didn't go to synagogue when I was growing up. My parents were not particularly religious. My mom doesn't believe in it at all. Considers herself, enjoys Buddhist philosophies and reads about them, and I read about them too, and we both read about them and talk about them and don't do them. That's kind of how we practice Judaism. It's sort of kind of like bird watching, but with a philosophy. Like, oh, that's Judaism over there. Check that out. Oh, that's interesting. My dad will always go to the funerals. That's of all the religious practices. He'll go to the funerals. That's a big deal for him. Kind of morbid, but he always likes to pay his respect. Won't talk to the people when they're alive, because who could blame him? But he'll be there at the funeral. I remember we did celebrate Hanukkah when I was growing up, and I think it was an attempt to just kind of show me my roots, so to speak, as it were. And so, I remember one year we lit the menorah, and after the third night we stopped because the wax was getting too messy to clean up. So that's our dedication to the religion right there. Too much wax, and all right, you know what? We're not Jewish anymore. Done. But we did that. We celebrated Passover, and we would read the Haggadah, and which basically told the story of the Ten Commandments, or not the story of Moses leading the Jews out of Israel. And I remember we didn't read it in Hebrew, but the little children's Haggadah. The Haggadah was basically the storybook that told the story of why we celebrate Passover, and it was written in Hebrew and in English, and I remember that we read it backwards. It started because I believe the Hebrew language, you read it right to left versus how we read our language, which is left to right. And so, what would normally be the last page of a book was the first page of the book with the Haggadah. That's what I remember with the Haggadah. That's everything I know about Judaism right there. And we would, and I would read that. We would read that out loud and hear the story, and about how Moses leading them out. And I remember the drawings in that particular Haggadah. It was a very G-rated version of the story of Moses. I just remember that, and kind of as G-rated as it could get. in terms of how they looked. The cartoons were very, or the pictures were very. How do I describe it? Very like children's book images. That's all the robes. Even everyone had clean robes in the picture. That's I think in reality they probably would be wearing rags and would look had no teeth and would look horrible. But this was the storybook version of that, and the Moses leading the Jews out of Egypt to the Promised Land, and the moral of the story was just enjoy everything you have now, because remember that we came from a place of suffering, and we'll be right back where we started. So gather ye rosebuds while ye may, but you can't actually enjoy the rosebuds because we're Jewish. We don't enjoy. We don't enjoy. We eat, we contemplate death, and then we complain. That's Judaism. Transition. I grew up in Colorado. And I recognize it's a very beautiful state. I never really connected with nature. I enjoy nature. I think the older I get, I have more of an appreciation for it. But we would always go to the mountains, and I always got very nervous when we drove through the mountains. Specifically, whenever we would go to Aspen in the summer because it was cheaper. Just I'm throwing that out there. We weren't jet setting, driving to Aspen in the winter and all that. And, hanging out with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. That was not happening. We drove in the summer or in the fall to watch the leaves change. But we would take Independence Pass to get to Aspen, and there was a point at Independence Pass where basically it's a 2-lane highway that's on a giant cliff. It's the kind of cliff that you would see Indiana Jones driving a Jeep on, just barely getting thrown off by the bad guys. That kind of cliff. And it scared the bejeebus out of me every single time that we drove on that damn highway. I remember that. I could not stand it. It's just a sheer cliff. I feel like it's, if that's the kind of cliff that you go down that road when you're trying to get to Mordor and get rid of the damn ring, not when you're just driving up to sit in a hot tub and look at trees. It's too much of a risk. That always freaked me out, that road. I couldn't stand it. I've been horseback riding twice, and that was 2 times. That's enough. I'm good with that. I feel guilty whenever I ride on a horse. I just feel like I feel guilty about it. I think if the horses could choose, they would not give tours. I really believe that. I don't think the horse is there of its own free will. I don't think it's union. I don't think, and I'm saying it, he or she. But the horse I had specifically I remember that the name of the horse was Ahab the Arab. That's what they called him. So that's the kind of forward-thinking and progressive people I was dealing with. They named the horse Ahab the Arab. Very nice, very good. Not at all insulting. And the interesting thing about my particular horse that I rode was that it was the same horse that apparently Chelsea Clinton rode at one point. And it was a horse that farted all the time. The entire time I was on that horse, it farted. And my poor aunt was behind me, getting blasted to smithereens by the Chelsea Clinton horse. I think there's a delicious metaphor there, unfortunately, for the state of what's going on. They told me that the horse would not stop eating. It was a horse that would, if it saw a meal, it would keep eating and get sick and then eat some more. So there you have it. Ahab for you. The horse would always stop to eat. I had to pull on the reins, and it would walk and then eat, and I would pull on the reins, and it would walk and eat, and I would pull on the reins, and just looking back on it, I'm like, God, I felt bad for not letting it finish its meal. It's like every time I'm trying to enjoy my meal, someone just pulls me away. It sounds horrible. We went to in Aurora, they have the National Stock Show and Rodeo, and I remember we went there, and we're watching people with these animals, and I think I asked my mom at one point, "Why do we go to this?" And I think she didn't know why we went. We don't belong in a stock show and rodeo. We don't. We can barely digest anything. We can I think going to a Chinese restaurant and dealing with the digestion for us, that's the closest we can get to any kind of an outdoor activity where we're really exerting ourselves, as far as I'm concerned. I think I've gone on long enough. That'll do it. This is the end of the podcast, the end of the podcast. And the children sing and the children play. This is the end of the podcast.